conversation, great beer, and great food. Whether in a bar in Budapest after the collapse of the Soviet Union, or a late-night club in Tuscany.
With Rebels in Chiapas, or a late-night tavern in Chicago.
Or war-torn Bosnia, the best conversations were always over a bottle of beer. A hearty handshake?
And an honest conversation.
I'm W.C. Turk, Chicago author and activist.
And I'm Brian Murray of RevolutionandBeer.com.
And I'm Chef A.J. Francisco, and this is Revolution and Beer.
I think the bar's open, boys. Let's hit it.
Let's do it.
Got no fun, not so cool.
Folks, welcome to the show. This is the Revolution and Beer Show. I'm W.C. Turk, here with Brian Murray, my co-host, and our chef, A.J. Francisco. Doing things a little bit different here today. We had a really important topic. I think we were talking before the show with our guests. I think this might be one of the most important shows that we do, only because this show has the opportunity to directly impact someone's life, and we're hoping that if someone is out there and sees some of the resources we're going to have on the screen today, and provide that you'll be able to act on those and really make a difference in your own life or in someone else's life. That said, again, we are the Revolution and Beer Show. Like us at Facebook at Revolution and Beer. Check us out at revolutionandbeer.com, where we talk about all things grassroots and activism, and we do it over fine beer and great food.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you're looking to find out what's going on in Chicago with people trying to take care of business, you check our site out.
That's it. Very quickly, again, I'm W.C. Turk, Chicago author and activist.
I'm Brian Murray, RevolutionandBeer.com.
I'm Revolution and Beer Chef A.J. Francisco.
Yes. And just a few quick notes on today's show. And I did want to say on the bottom of your screen, you will notice a lot of references. Don't believe what we have to say. We're going to throw up websites. We're going to throw up ways that you can become active, things that you can engage on your smartphone, on your handheld, to get active, to get informed, to inform yourself better as well. So you're not just taking somebody's word for it on TV, that you're actually looking at some of these things, making a difference yourself, and then engaging some of these causes and actions, because that's what we're really all about. We're about empowering you and helping you to find resources that aren't available in the mainstream media, because we're not mainstream guys.
Yeah. Well, we might still throw a few sports scores or something in there just for fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to the kitchen. I'll be back in a minute, guys.
All right. Thanks, AJ. Don't forget your drink.
Of course not.
I'm looking forward to the return.
All right, and just a quick note about today's beer. We're featuring a ginger beer, and this is an English ginger beer. I tend to be more of a mainstream guy when it comes to beer. There's that old German purity law for beer, the Reinheitsgebot, in which the Germans mandated that only certain ingredients could be used in beer. This stretches things a little bit, but I think the beer industry overall right now is kind of dynamic. It's changing rapidly. There's also a little bit underreported is the influence of women in the market for beer. They're changing the palate. They're changing the market for beer. They're actually influencing sales greatly, which is good to know, because I think that gives gives women's influence in the beer market a little bit more power. So here's to that. And I very quickly with the ginger beer, I needed to do a quick shout out to a friend of ours on the radio show, Julia Shu. She's a big fan of ginger beer, and suggested a drink that. We may try here at some point, called a Dark and Stormy, with rum and ginger beer.
But not on camera.
Yeah. So thanks, Julia. We'll try to get to that here in just a bit. And I do have to say, we do a weekly beer review at my 900-pound Gorilla WordPress blog that you can also find on the website at revolutionandbeer.com. We do a lot of reviews. We never got the reaction that we did.
It was
like
amazing.
we did with ginger beer.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It went viral very quickly, the article, the review, and worldwide. So I heard within 10 minutes from a number of friends
Yeah, yeah.
about the beer that never happens.
Oddly enough, yeah, it was the biggest reach that I think we've had on any of the beer reviews yet, which was very surprising to me.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do a quick toast to our guests here.
L'chaim.
Cheers.
This is kind of what it's all about. Very quickly, I want to introduce our guest. Sitting in the center here, Regina Buccola is Associate Professor of English Literature, Language Arts, and Sciences at Roosevelt University, and a contributor, that's how I know you, to Democracy Burlesque.
Absolutely. I'm also on the core faculty of our Women's and Gender Studies program, which is part of why I'm here today.
Awesome.
And a feminist poet who has read at the bookstore of Linda, who you will meet momentarily. And I've also done some solo feminist performance work myself. And I recently just published a response, which we can talk about perhaps later,
Absolutely.
to Robin Morgan's poem, Letter to a Sister Underground, from her collection Monster, which was published 40 years ago, a little over 40 years ago now, that was just published in the Women's Studies Journal, where I sort of asked the question, why can we still write letters to sisters underground 40 years later with the feminist movement supposedly post?
And we'd be able to have a link up on the screen for people to get to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
we're supposed to be post-racist, post-racism, post-partisan, all that stuff. We're in the post.
Well, if you're watching us now, close your eyes. Wait a second. There's the link. Sitting next to Gina is Paula Kamen, author of several great books, a couple of which that I know very, very well, including Her Way, a young women's, what did I have here? Young Women Remake the Sexual
Revolution, yes.
I butchered that, but we got it out.
Yeah, yeah, as long as you spell my name right.
I
That's what
promise.
counts.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's why we have spell check.
And then all in my head about chronic pain.
Right, chronic pain and a lot of focus about women and
Yeah.
and how they and their experience with it and the lack of treatments and stigmas, things like that.
And I think if we get a chance, I would like to touch on that a little bit with you. I know my wife is a sufferer of chronic pain, fibromyalgia. She read your book, and it meant a lot to her. So that's how I came to that. The other book is Finding Iris Chang.
Right.
Which was just an absolutely brilliant book. And for folks who don't know, Iris Chang wrote probably one of the best books about genocide, nationalism, groupthink, The Rape of Nanking, which is an incredibly powerful book. Iris was a friend of yours.
Yes, yeah, from the U of I in Champaign-Urbana,
Yeah.
we were on the Daily Illini together.
Yeah. And tragically, the literary world lost her. And you wrote, I guess I'm calling it an addendum to that work, to her work.
Yeah, she committed suicide
Yeah.
it was almost 10 years ago, but
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been that long. But and there were so many rumors flying around that there had been conspiracies against her by the U.S. government because she was critical in later years of the U.S. government and some of the post-war alliances that it made. But yeah, and it ended up being a lot of also about chronic or about mental illness that she had secretly experienced and bipolar disorder. So just to set the record correctly about what happened to her, raise awareness about that issue.
And I thought both books, both hers and yours, were really powerful books. And as I said, yours is an important follow-up to what Iris had to contribute to the world, which was a brilliant piece of work.
Thank you.
Last, definitely not least, Linda Bubon is the co-owner of Women and Children First bookstore, the largest feminist bookstore in the United States.
Oh.
And since 1979, is it the oldest?
No. Room of One Zone in Madison opened
Okay.
4 years before us.
Okay.
And they're still doing well. But yeah, one of the oldest will be 34 this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And kind of enjoying a new resurgence since one of the big chain bookstores closed. That's been very, very helpful. And I think people are having a renewed appreciation for independent businesses and curated collections that you find in independent bookstores. We have a couple other great independent bookstores on the north side, and you'll find lots of different things in all three of our stores. Our focus certainly is on women and women writers, but lots of other issues too.
It's much more than a bookstore. I know your Andersonville store probably best of all.
We do a lot of events at the store. So my favorite is story time every Wednesday for preschoolers. And there's like 30 to 50 toddlers there every Wednesday morning. And I get to perform and entertain. You can't be too big for a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. The more I ham it up, the more they love it. So that's really fun. And then there are 3 to 4 author events every week. We have Sappho's Salon for lesbians and their friends once a month on a Saturday night, third Saturday of every month. We have 4 different book clubs that meet, and our newest book club is for 8 to 12-year-olds. Boys and girls come on the second Sunday of every month, and Miss Mack, our 20-year-old super employee, conducts this book group. It's not for parents and children, it's for children. It's for children to discuss their ideas and the books that they love. I'm happy to say both boys and girls attend, and we're excited about that.
And if I could build on that great smile here just a moment, just to put you on the spot a little bit. In 2004, I think it was the Sun-Times that said that you and your partner, your co-owner,
Ann Christofferson.
Were among the 100 most influential women in Chicago.
It was very gratifying. I like to say that I was never interested in money or power, but I do like being an influence. So as I can, as I can be an influence into what people read and what people talk about and help direct the conversation around people's issues, workers' issues, women's issues, taking care of our children. They don't raise themselves. And there's so many ways in which the women's movement, which the bookstore is a part of, has a lot of work left to do. And it's not like the progress just continues in an upward direction. We've had peaks and valleys and peaks and valleys, and
I think that's important. Going into Women and Children First is not like walking into a Borders or a Barnes and Noble, or there's really an important social aspect to the book. There's really an important voice. There's really an important place in this culture that bookstores like Women and Children First fill.
Well, making space for women and children and making their needs be paramount is kind of a radical act. It was a radical act when we opened the store 34 years ago and said we were going to carry fiction and poetry exclusively by women. And frankly, it was hard to find enough in print to fill up an 850 square foot space. And now, we have 3,500 square feet, and we have to be really selective about the women and male authors we carry. And children's books, oh my goodness, what was available when I was a child, a few golden books and, Milne, and books essentially for 5 and up. And now, you put books in the hands of infants, and they're appropriate for them to chew on.
Well, we talk a lot about places for people and communities to come together. We're sitting in a bar, which we chose. We choose this environment because we like to drink, but also because it's where we come to meet people and have great conversations. But we've talked about schools being center point of the community and how we're eroding that whole system and that whole network. And places like Women and Children's First are really a holdout. I mean, this is an accessible place where people can come and consume information without pressure that they usually wouldn't get, and that's always really important for people. And the fact that you are including children into the aspect, you're building a community with what you're doing.
And it's so easy in so many ways. I mean, so many more businesses could be child-friendly than are. We have 2 boxes this big of toys, mostly donated. Old plastic toys and a couple of trucks and a wonderful fire truck that somebody donated. You know, that's all it takes to make your space a little more child-friendly, so a child can grab onto that instead of the books on the shelf. And their parent can have a few minutes of peace to look themselves. They can find other parents to talk with, and kids can play with each other. It's just not that hard. I mean, we have a changing table outside the bathroom. Our bathrooms are accessible to people. I mean, that's just not hard for, I think, a restaurant or a shop to provide.
I have a little one. Paula has a couple of young ones, and yeah, it's surprising to see how hard it is to find those things. But yeah, when you actually spend a little bit of time paying attention to it, it's not that hard to set it up. And I appreciate having a place that I can come with my kid, and not have to constantly keep an eye on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And not worry about him getting into something bad.
That's a good segue. I think AJ's got the food ready, so we're going to bring AJ out, and we're going to have a
I thought I
little
smelled
snack
something
here,
good.
talk a little bit of food, right as we get. So AJ, if you got it, buddy.
I'm right here.
Oh man, why don't you come
It's
around this
fast.
side?
Okay.
That way we can sort of run it at the bar here, and then
Pass those plates.
Oh, yes.
talking. Look at that, man.
All right.
Oh, those dumplings are beautiful.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
Wow.
A little cucumber salad.
Wow.
I have to say that Revolution in Beer does beer food like nobody else, and the food has just been a brilliant addition with AJ. So
Yeah, you want to talk creativity?
Man,
Always,
oh, man.
Wow.
always said it was ginger beer,
Yeah.
and boom.
Yeah. Magical.
you want to talk about this? Talk about this a little bit, AJ. Tell us what we're about to get into here.
On the right is the shumai, and that's stuffed with pork, ground beef, caramelized onion, roasted garlic, and shrimp. I have 2 dipping sauces there. One is a sweet chili sauce. The other is a ginger sweet soy. Cucumber salad is a little bit of Thai inspired. A little crisp, fresh red onion, peanut, coriander, fresh cilantro. I really hope you like it.
It's beautiful, too. The colors.
Very quickly, yeah. Thank you very much, and very quickly, thank you to Valentina for her help as always. And I think, Valentina, we've got one more skewer here for you, if you'd like, or we can share it.
Oh,
How could you possibly resist?
The skewers are marinated with ginger, sweet soy, and a little bit of a hoisin glaze. A little bit of a toasted sesame on top.
It's like a fantasy. I watch a lot of food shows, and it's pressed up against the screen, so to actually,
I know.
be able to eat it.
Yeah, I think the food will pair really well with this
Wow.
with this beer.
And like I said, we were really surprised, and I'd like to get thank you. I'd like to get your guys' impression of the beer, and be as honest and brutal as you like. We like folks to be able to make smart and comfortable choices about the type of food and beer that
Well,
they
I
choose.
like the spiciness of it, and I don't drink soda. I gave up anything with soda in it or sugary things a while ago, and this tastes like a really good soda, but not sugary.
Yeah,
I think it's because the ice is in it too. It doesn't,
a little bit. Yep.
it doesn't make it as pungent or rich or thick as most beers are.
It does have that nice. It does have that nice, fresh ginger, real ginger spice at the end of it.
Yes.
That was kind of interesting. Sort of takes the place of like a hoppiness for a more traditional bitter beer.
It's very light. I can imagine it's a nice summer back porch sipping drink, I
Oh,
think.
absolutely. Like warm weather, it would just be amazing.
we could have gone a lot of different ways with this discussion. There were a lot of ideas talked around. Initially, Gina and I, our first conversation was about, and this one kind of hit me between the eyes, and I thought that I knew something about women's issues and feminism. She brought up the lack of progress over the course of human history for women. Initially, I kind of smiled and went, and then walked away thinking about it. Initially, I'm in this culture, and I first began thinking, well, you know, women in this country have A, B, C, and D. The most recent headlines and silliness that's going on around the country notwithstanding. But you can't think of women's issues that culturally specific. If you want to think about women's issues, you really have to think of women from a global perspective. It has to be all-encompassing. And so we began paring down that issue a little bit, scaling it back to some of the other issues: human trafficking, domestic violence, guns and domestic violence, which seems particularly poignant at this point in history in the national conversation.
The last time I heard Gloria Steinem speak in Chicago Foundation for Women, this was 4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and she felt like it was one of the most important feminist issues was gun control.
Yep.
And that we really had to step up because so many women are killed in their own homes
Yes.
by weapons in their own homes.
You know, I just had a conversation with Robin Kelly, who's running for the 2nd congressional district seat on the south side of Chicago. And one of the things that she was talking about, she's actually had 2 people close to her who were killed by significant partners, and that is the trend. That's the trend in America between partners, particularly women, is that they tend to be assaulted and worse, sometimes killed by their partners.
There's that statistic that you always hear, and speak to this, please. That if a woman leaves an abusive spouse, they're 3 times as likely to be killed by that person. Or I can't remember exactly the phrasing that they usually give, but it's an enormous risk, almost to the point where it's incapacitated. It's not even worth trying to break out. And
That's where the worst violence happens, when they try to leave the situation.
Yeah. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well,
I didn't want to interrupt.
and sometimes there are many situations where men use women's children against them, or threaten the children. And so I think often women stay in situations and take the abuse to protect their children.
Yeah.
Often it takes the child being abused or the child being threatened to make the mother leave. If she doesn't have alternatives, how is she going to feed her kids? And usually situations, I think, in which women are dominated and controlled in their housing situation, it's gradual.
Yep.
And predators are very careful to deplete women of their resources, to separate them from their families, to pick fights with their sisters and brothers and their parents, and to isolate that woman in the home. They disapprove of her friends. They disapprove of certainly any male friends, any way that she might establish a way to get out. It's really deliberate, I think, in a lot of cases.
What's driving that? And we see like with the issue in India, but also there's the name escapes me off the top of my head. It has something to do with the protection of family. It's a male-dominated group that has resisted any legislation at all, including legislation against marital rape. what's driving that? And we've only got a couple minutes here for this part. I knew this was going to happen in this show. I knew it was that it was gonna be way too much for another show. So we're gonna do that. But very quickly, I want to get your response on what do you think is driving it in this culture and in men in particular, the issue of violence.
Well, I mean, I think one question we have to ask is why are things like the Violence Against Women Act something that has to come up for reapproval periodically?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
why is that not just a standing law?
Right.
You know, who is for violence against women? You know, I don't understand.
Apparently somebody, because
Well,
there seems to be a
apparently.
lot of resistance to it.
There was a
Yes.
lot of
I mean,
resistance.
it was extremely
Yes, it was.
difficult to pass this, and so I don't understand why it needs to be repassed, one, and two, why it is such a challenge to persuade people to vote for it. And I mean, some of it is, of course, the way that our Congress works. You know, like bills get omnibused and all sorts of other crap gets loaded on there that's not actually the Violence Against Women Act. So that's part of the problem, but I don't think that it's the entire problem.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not really sure I have an answer to your question of what is driving this. Misogyny?
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking when, you know, I grew up in a middle-class home with a loving father. My mother had been in an abusive relationship in her first marriage and had gotten out. So it was hard for me when I opened the store and when books started coming out about violence against women, not just the domestic violence that you hear about.
I don't want to cut you off there too quickly. We've actually come sort of to the end of this show, but folks, we're going to have these folks hold over. We'll see you next week. We're going to continue this conversation. So I'd like to thank again our guests, Linda Bubon, Paula Kamen, and Regina Buccola. That's kind of it. That's going to be last call. As I said, this is sort of an abbreviated kind of, we need to come back and cover this. So we're going to hold on for a couple of seconds here. We will continue this next week. So please come back. We'll have some great resources for you.